Never in a million years did I see it coming. Ashley and I had created a peaceful, stable, and comfortable life together for nearly 10 years. Years of dating allowed us to develop routines, inside jokes, and an unconscious understanding. At least that's what I believed. Then everything changed one night. The TV was buzzing softly in the background as we finished our dinner while seated on the couch. She turned to face me, her eyes far away as if she were in another place, and I was in the middle of biting when she made this inscrutable face. She remarked, "I don't feel happy anymore." My fork was halfway to my mouth when I froze. I briefly believed I had misheard her. Then I gave a little apprehensive laugh. "What do you mean?" I asked, putting down my plate as my appetite abruptly diminished. She let out a sigh and avoided my eyes as she looked down at her hands. She whispered, "I don't know, I just feel different." That wasn't a response. That wasn't a response. It was a puzzle. My heart pounded uneasily against my ribs as I leaned forward. "Is it me? Did I do something? Are you stressed? What changed?" Her eyes were still adrift as she shrugged. She said, "I don't know, I just need space." My chest began to feel heavy. Those were statements I had heard from friends who had experienced breakups previously. Space never meant simply that. It was the beginning of something terrible, the gradual disintegration of everything. But I didn't think we were experiencing it. I thought this was only a phase. Is this an area that presents challenges? They were a part of every couple. I mustered a firm nod, swallowing my dread instead of pushing. "Okay," I replied. "What do you need from me?" She whispered, "I just need time." Subsequently, the ground underneath me changed. I reassured myself that she was simply going through a phase. Perhaps she felt stuck or overburdened. I could make this right. All I needed to do was remind her of us and what we had. I thus stood up for her. I gave her flowers, organized date evenings, and put small tokens of affection in her bag. I prepared her favorite meals, genuinely inquired about her day, and paid close attention to all she had to say. Perhaps I had been too preoccupied and engrossed in life to realize she was fading away, so I even took a few days off work to spend time with her. However, none of it was successful. She stayed far away no matter what I did. She mustered a pleasant smile, but it wasn't genuine. Her fingers never curled around mine the way they did when she let me hold her hand. She returned my kiss, but I could sense that she wasn't truly there. Then I began to pay attention to the details. She was tilting the screen away from me and checking her phone more frequently. When I asked her whether she was okay, she sighed as if she was sick of responding. She paused before saying, "I love you," as if the words were no longer quite fitting on her tongue. Then the night arrived when everything fell apart. I prepared a delicious supper, turned down the lights, and turned on some relaxing music because I had something special planned. We were spending the night together alone. She scarcely ate as she sat across from me at the table, stirring her meal absently. Without even glancing up, she abruptly stated, "You don't have to do all this." I put down my fork. "I want to." Her shoulders slumped under an unseen burden as she let out a deep exhale. "Jake, I told you I just need space." Something broke inside of me. "Space from what?" I asked in a softer, more controlled tone. "From me?" She didn't respond. "And that's quiet?" That was my response. She slept next to me that night, her back to me as if I were a complete stranger. While I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, I had taken every possible action. I had thrown everything at her. However, if she wasn't even sure if she wanted me, why did I have to fight alone? So I paused. During the day, I stopped sending her texts, ceased to check in, ceased attempting to make her feel special, stopped making plans, and stopped inquiring about her well-being. I was no longer going to plead for her attention, even if I still loved her. At that point, an odd event occurred. She saw. It seemed subtle at first. In the middle of the day, she began sending me sporadic texts. "You're where?" She hardly acknowledged my absence previously. At work, she gave me a call merely to check in. When I asked her about her day a few days ago, she hardly answered, but now she asks about mine. When I arrived home late, she looked up from the couch as if she had anticipated my arrival hours before, waiting for me. When I went into the kitchen one evening to get a drink, she was just observing me from there. She said, "You've been really distant lately," in a softer than normal tone. I shrugged and took a sip of water. "I'm just giving you the space you asked for." I noticed something flicker in her eyes for the first time in weeks when she blinked. Uncertainty. Fear, perhaps. She wasn't prepared for this. She initially made an effort to pretend that she was okay and that it didn't disturb her. She persuaded herself that I was merely angry and attempting to avenge her. However, she grew increasingly restless as it continued. She made another attempt. She would recommend that we watch our favorite shows together. When I was doing chores around the house, she would stay by my side. One night, after not having done so in months, she even brought home my favorite takeout. Then, one evening, she paused before taking a seat next to me while I was on the couch browsing through my phone. Her voice was hardly audible above a whisper when she said, "Do you still love me?" I turned to face her, my face unreadable. "Why are you asking me that now?" Unexpectedly, she blinked. I feel like we're growing apart." I gave a little chuckle. "You're the one who wanted space. I'm just respecting that." It was then that I realized my mistake. She had anticipated that I would wait, defend her, and persevere through everything. She never imagined that I would give up on her. Still, something didn't feel right. She did have regrets, but they weren't limited to me. There was more to it. She was concealing something, and I would soon learn just what it was. There was a problem. I could sense it in Ashley's current gaze, which lingered a bit too long when she believed I wasn't looking. In the sense that, after withdrawing for weeks, she felt the need to be near me. I didn't lean into it, though. I refused to accept that this was her way of coming back to me. This wasn't love. Sorry. It was terror. She was worried about what would happen if I stopped caring, not about losing me. And I understood in my heart why. For weeks, perhaps months, the signals had been present. These signals manifested themselves in the form of late nights and evasive explanations. Every time I passed by, she would quickly swipe to close her screen and text nonstop. The way she shied away from emotional and physical closeness, as if she had a huge secret that was driving me away. Then I discovered the evidence one evening. While taking a shower, Ashley left her phone on the kitchen counter. There was a single buzz, then twice. I didn't have anything in mind. That was not me. I had never looked through her belongings, and had never had enough reason to suspect her. Then I noticed the message, though. "We miss you. When will we be able to meet again?" I felt cold all over. My mind refused to process the words as I gazed at the screen. I remained motionless despite my hands clenching into fists at my sides. Her phone went unanswered by me. Not even a breath left my body. Because everything made sense at that time. She desired options rather than room. With me as a fallback, she wanted to try things out with someone else. She was rushing to entice me back in, as soon as she noticed I was no longer pursuing her. Love was never the issue, it has to do with control. Additionally, I had stopped playing this game. Ashley smiled at me as if nothing had changed when she emerged from the toilet a few minutes later, her hair dried with a towel wrapped around her. As if she hadn't just destroyed everything we had worked so hard to create. The ridiculousness of that nearly made me chuckle. But I remained silent. Not quite yet. I was silent for the following few days. It wasn't because I was hesitating or uncertain. However, I had to get ready. I started everything by meeting with a lawyer. I made sure everything was in its proper place and gathered what I needed. And something changed inside of me throughout those days. I lost interest. Totally. I didn't inquire about her emotional state. I didn't see how she was doing. I stopped observing her, and I stopped waiting for her to acknowledge me. The burden I had been bearing for weeks, the bewilderment, the desperation, the heartbreak was gone. I wasn't upset. I wasn't even injured. I simply didn't care. Naturally, Ashley noticed. She began to observe me more intently, as if I were a riddle she was unable to solve. She began making an effort, sitting beside me on the couch and rubbing her fingers against mine while she waited for me to respond. One night, she brought my favorite meal home and placed it in front of me as a peace sacrifice. With caution, she remarked, "You've been so quiet lately." I nodded, swallowed, and took a bite. "Yeah." She shifted uneasily in her chair. "Is something wrong?" I maintained eye contact with her. "Nope." Of course, it was a lie. It was all wrong. She didn't deserve to know what was going to happen, though. Not quite yet. She tried one final time the night before I went. She climbed in beside me as I lay in bed, browsing through my phone. After a moment of hesitation, she put her hand on my arm. "Jake," she said in a whisper. I didn't answer. She gave a little sigh. "Can we talk?" I gave her a quick glance by turning my head slightly. "About what?" She nibbled on her lip. "Us." After giving her a lengthy look, I returned my attention to my phone. "Go ahead." She tightened her hold on my arm. "Do you still love me?" It was nearly a humorous question. She had been ignoring me for weeks, treating me as if I didn't exist. She had treated me like an afterthought, cheated and lied. She needed to know if I still loved her now. I put my phone on the nightstand, switched it off, and gave her a direct look. "Why do you care?" Ashley winced as if she hadn't anticipated that. As if she believed that the minute she paid me attention once more, I would simply lose it. She said, I don't want to lose you," in a voice that was almost audible above a whisper. I exhaled slowly while examining her face for any remnant of the woman I had fallen in love with. She wasn't present. With a slight lean, I spoke in a steady, calm tone. "Then you shouldn't have let me go." That's when I saw the panic. She had made a mistake. She had believed that no matter how poorly she treated me, I would always be there and wait indefinitely. However, she was mistaken. She was aware of it. I rolled over, switched off the lamp by the bed, and fell asleep. I was leaving tomorrow, permanently. Everything felt like the morning I left. Still, it was not the serene stillness that comes with calm mornings and new beginnings. Before a storm, before something breaks, there was a certain silence. I packed quietly. It was because I was done, not because I was unsure or hesitating. Totally finished. Ashley watched me fold my clothing and pack my belongings carefully in the bag while she stood in the doorway, her arms encircling herself. At first, she remained silent. She simply remained there, rigid and breathing too shallowly, as if she was worried that I would vanish before she could comprehend what was happening if she moved too quickly. And perhaps that was precisely what was taking place. She finally spoke as I grabbed the handle and zipped up the luggage. "What are you doing?" I continued to move. "Leaving," her breath caught. "For how long?" I looked over at her. "For good." She blinked rapidly, seemingly processing the spoken words. "Jake, don't do this." I laughed quietly and without humor. "I'm not the one who did this, Ashley. You are." Panic flashed across her features. "I don't understand." I studied her with a small twist of my head. I saw the message. Her whole body tensed. She didn't even inquire about the message, didn't even attempt to appear foolish. She simply stopped, opening and closing her mouth as if she were trying to come up with a falsehood that would never come. I extended a hand. "Don't." She closed her mouth. "It doesn't matter anymore," I said straight out. After that, I picked up my bag and moved past her. She hurried after me along the corridor, her anxiety intensifying. "Wait, where are you going?" I said without turning around. "I told you I'm leaving." With her arms out as if to physically prevent me from leaving, she moved ahead of me before I could get to the door. She said, "Please, I don't want us to break up." With a leisurely sigh, I tightened my grasp on the luggage handle. After that, I gave her a serious look. This woman used to be my entire universe. This woman had given me the impression that we were invincible. But when she felt she had the luxury of my undying devotion, she broke everything. "We didn't fall apart, Ashley," I murmured softly. "You walked away. And now, I'm just doing the same." She started crying. Her quivering fingers clutched my arm as she sought me out. She gasped, "Please, I don't want to lose you." I took a while to pull away. I gave her a moment to wait. Allow her to sense the warmth of my skin and tighten her hold as if she could prevent me from slipping away with enough effort. I then carefully pried her fingers away from me. The words, "You already did," I muttered. I then left through the door. I didn't turn around. I didn't wait until she approached me. As the door closed behind me, I heard her cry. However, for the very first time in a very long time, it made no difference. I filed for divorce the following morning. I located a flat on the other side of town. There was nothing grandiose or ornate about it, just a peaceful atmosphere. A new beginning. I signed the paperwork, packed the remaining items, and departed the house over the course of the following several days. Ashley didn't argue with me about it. She might have assumed I was bluffing. Perhaps she assumed I would return at some point. However, I didn't. I spent months concentrating on starting over. I gave my all at work, went to the gym more frequently, and resumed old pastimes that I had put off during our relationship. After a while, I began dating. It felt weird at first. It felt strange to be learning about someone new while seated opposite a woman who wasn't Ashley. It felt good, though, even refreshing. For the first time, I was living for myself. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I had a knock on my door one evening. I didn't think anyone would show up. The noise reverberated throughout my flat as I was putting on my sneakers and getting ready for the gym. I pulled the door open. I froze as well. Ashley was standing there. The woman I had left behind did not resemble her at all. She wore her hair in an untidy bun. Dark circles rested beneath her eyes, which were exhausted. In front of her, her hands were clutched together, as if she were using just her resolve to keep herself together. "Hey," she murmured. I let out a steady breath, already aware of the direction this was taking. "Hey." She stood up and looked around as if she was adjusting to my new existence, the life that was no longer hers. She said, "Can I come in?" I considered it for a moment. In defiance of my better judgment, I then moved aside. She entered, her movements unsure, her gaze sweeping the room. I folded my arms and leaned against the counter. "What are you doing here, Ashley?" Her eyes darted to the floor and then back to me as she swallowed forcefully. I needed to see you, to talk." I remained silent. She inhaled nervously. "I made a mistake, Jake." I waited with a tiny tilt of my head. "I thought I needed something else. Something different," she said. But nothing worked. The guy I was seeing, I ended it. I tried dating again, but nothing lasted. She moved in closer. Her eyes begged. And then I realized it was you. It was always you. I rubbed my fingers over my jaw and exhaled slowly. "Ashley, please," she interrupted in a frantic tone. "Just hear me out. I was stupid. I ruined everything. But I swear I see it now. I see what I lost." I looked at her for a while, allowing her words to sink in, allowing them to settle in. I shook my head after that. "I moved on, Ashley." She winced as if the words had caused her bodily pain. She whispered, "Jake, please," to him. "No," I gently but firmly responded. "You walked away, and I spent months trying to figure out what I did wrong. But now I know. I wasn't the problem. You were." Her eyes filled with tears. "I miss you," she stutteringly said. With a groan, I moved to the door. "You should go." At first, she remained motionless. She simply stood there, her lips open as if to plead or argue. But I couldn't think of anything to present to her. At last, she wiped her eyes and nodded. She moved past me, pausing briefly at the doorway. "I apologize," she muttered. I didn't answer. After that, she left my life, permanently. I closed the door after her. I locked it, and inhaled deeply. Additionally, for the first time since it all started, I was calm, since I had prevailed. I just stood there, staring at the closed door for the first several minutes after she departed. Anger, remorse, or grief were the emotions I anticipated feeling. Anything. However, I felt nothing at all. There was no sting behind my eyes and no pain in my chest. There was just a weird, unsettling quiet, as if I had finally emerged from a storm that I was unaware had ensnared me. Ashley had left. I also didn't feel like pursuing her for the first time in a long time. The next days were lighter. I kept anticipating the day when it would really hit me, when I would wake up feeling empty and regret what I had done. However, it never materialized. I plunged into my schedule, which included going to the gym, working, and hanging out with friends, just to remind myself that there was still life outside the rubble of what Ashley and I had created. I went on casual dates, and gradually, bit by bit, I began to feel like myself once more. It was not the man who tried to fix a broken thing for months, not the man who pleaded for someone to love him as he was worthy of being loved. No, I was superior. I had freedom. About a month later, my best friend Nate and I were sitting at a pub one evening, drinking beers, as he talked endlessly about a girl he had recently begun dating. And, "Man, I swear she's different," he said, emphasizing the point with his hands. "She's not like the others. She actually listens when I talk. She makes me feel like I matter, you know?" I took a sip of my drink and grinned. "Sounds like you've got it bad." "Maybe," he smiled and said, "but it's a good bad." I nodded. observing how his entire face brightened as he spoke of her. Then it dawned on me. That's what I desired, not merely a comeback, not just a companion to kill time. I desired something genuine, something based on loyalty and trust on love, without strings attached or games played. I believed I had that with Ashley for years. Love, in my opinion, should be about perseverance and standing by you through difficult times. However, love wasn't meant to feel like a battleground. It wasn't meant to make you doubt your value. I came to a realization when I was sitting there listening to Nate about this new girl. I didn't have the best love story with Ashley. She taught me the most. I met someone a few weeks later. It wasn't prearranged. It wasn't coerced. It simply happened. Rachel was her name. Of all places, we met at a coffee shop. She mumbled something about never carrying cash as she fumbled for her wallet. Ahead of me in line. Don't worry about it, I found myself saying before I had given it much thought. I got it. She turned, her cheeks slightly flushed, her eyes bright. Oh no, I can't. It's just coffee, I said with a shrug as I gave my card to the merchant. After a moment of hesitation, she grinned. Thank you. That was it. A moment of simplicity. However, it altered everything in some way. As if we had known each other for ages, we spent hours conversing while seated at a table by the window. There were no forced giggles or uncomfortable silences. Simple talk, the kind that helped you forget about everything. And when did she smile? It wasn't courteous. It wasn't coerced. It was authentic. I also felt something real for the first time in a long time. Months went by. Slowly and organically, Rachel and I continued to see one another. There were no power battles or psychological games. She didn't cause me to doubt my position. When she worried she was losing me, she didn't draw away and then bring me back in. She simply remained. She turned to me one evening as we were lying on the couch, watching a silly reality show, and her face was gentle and almost shy. I really like you, Jake. Her speech was clear and unhesitating. Don't be afraid to say or give too much. Just be honest. It was refreshing, I must say. I let my fingertips rest on her skin as I reached over and tucked a lock of hair behind her ear. I really like you too. I knew instantly when she smiled and leaned into my touch. This was not like the others. This was the expected sensation of love. Ashley, meanwhile, continued to loiter in the background. She didn't try to get in touch with me again after that night at my place, and I didn't reach out either. However, I heard rumors. Mutual friends told me she wasn't doing well, that she felt remorse for everything. I noticed that she occasionally mentioned me and expressed regret for her actions. It didn't matter by then, though. The past would not be altered by regret. Furthermore, I wasn't turning around. I received a text from an unidentified number one evening, about a year after our divorce. Jake, hello. Ashley is here. I spent a lot of time looking at the screen. Then, before I could think too much about it, I removed the message. And with that, I permanently closed the chapter. Ashley texted me, but I never replied. Not because I was upset. Not because I was seeking retribution. But because I was at a loss for words. She had dominated the story of our relationship for a long time, pulling and pushing, determining when I was deserving of attention and when I wasn't. That was the last thing I did that day. We didn't delete her message out of resentment. It has to do with closure. The kind of resolution that isn't achieved through theatrical altercations or farewell discussions. It occurs when you recognize that you no longer require answers. Life went on. Rachel and I continued to develop organically and without effort. She wasn't flawless. I wasn't either. However, that was the main objective. The goal of love was to find someone who made imperfection feel secure, not to find perfection. I never doubted my sufficiency because of the way she loved me. And I had never even recognized my need for that. The sun was setting when Rachel and I were strolling through the park one afternoon, almost 2 years after Ashley and I had split up. Rachel's hand was warm in mine. I first noticed her as we passed a tiny cafe. Ashley. She sat by the window by herself, eyes far away, stirring her drink absently. She raised her head. We looked at each other for a moment. She stopped. I did too. It wasn't because I was missing her. Not because I recognized someone I used to know, but rather because I felt something else. She appeared to be older, not in the sense that people change with time, but rather in the way that regret does. She smiled at me uncertainly. I gave one nod. Not much more. After giving Rachel a gentle squeeze on the hand, I turned back to her and continued to walk. I didn't see Ashley again after that. I have no idea where she is right now. If she ever found what she was looking for, I don't know. However, I am aware of this. Some people are a blessing in your life. Others is an example. Ashley, too, she taught me the most. And I'm thankful for that, because I would never have had the opportunity to rebuild myself into something stronger if she hadn't broken me. I never would have found someone who genuinely wanted to stay if she hadn't let me go. Therefore, no. I don't despise her. I have no regrets about our past. I don't miss it, though, since I prevailed. This was not done in a small-minded, vindictive manner, not in a manner that required her to endure pain or plead. I healed. So I won. I selected myself, thus, I won. And ultimately, that was the only triumph that mattered.